Give me 10 minutes and I will tell you exactly how to write a good letter for IELTS General Training. So hey, welcome back to Everything IELTS, a series where I help you achieve your target IELTS band score. And this is Huyen, your favorite IELTS trainer. This is what we're gonna talk in this video. Okay, let's start with the first part of this video, how to distinguish between a formal and an informal letter in IELTS General Training and why it is important. In IELTS General Training Writing Task 1, the letter, you are supposed to write a letter. And this letter can be formal, informal, or semi-formal. To decide which kind of letter you are going to write, you need to look at the task. And then you need to look at the recipient of the letter. For example, if you are asked to write a letter to your friend, that is definitely an informal letter. But if you are asked to write a letter to your boss, it is definitely formal, right? So in the task, you will get the context of the letter, the content of the letter, what you need to write in the letter, and also who you are going to write this letter to. Based on those pieces of information, you will decide whether to write a formal or an informal letter. Sometimes you can write a semi-formal letter, for example, when you write a letter to complain about a bad service that you got from, say, a restaurant. This step is important because this is part of task achievement. By deciding whether you are going to write a formal or an informal letter, you will choose the language properly. There are things that you can do in informal letters, but you cannot do in a formal letter. And God forbids if you write an informal letter to your boss, it doesn't look good, right? Imagine. Just imagine. And also if you think about it, if you write a formal letter to your friend, it doesn't look good either, right? Now let's talk about the differences between a formal and an informal letter. They are quite different, but mainly in terms of vocabulary and sometimes the grammar that you are going to use in the letter. For example, in a formal letter, we are not going to contract words. For example, we cannot write can't instead of cannot, or don't instead of do not. Also, there are words that probably shouldn't be used in a formal letter, words that are by nature informal. For example, in a formal letter, instead of writing till, you should write until, because till is the informal form of the word until. The tone is also something that you should be paying attention to, because with a formal letter, of course, you need to sound formal. With an informal letter, you should sound more friendly. So the flow of the ideas should be less technical in an informal letter. But whether you are writing a formal or an informal letter, it is necessary for you to understand that the structure of the whole entire letter and the structure of each part of the letter is the same. Whenever I teach my clients, I always tell them to make sure that they remember the structure of the letter before going into details of what kind of letter they are writing. For example, a letter of complaint and a letter of request would have the same structure. However, the grammar, the vocabulary would be different. And I'll make sure I provide everything to my client. That is why my service is called Everything IELTS. Everything you need to know about the IELTS exam. So now we are discussing the most important part of this video, which is the structure of the letter and also the structure of each part of the letter. It doesn't matter what kind of letter you are writing. You need three parts: the greetings, the body, and the sign-off. So let's go into detail of what you need to write for each part. I'm going to be more serious now, okay? I think I've been a little bit too friendly now, so you do not take me seriously. So now pay attention and write down what you're learning now. I'm just kidding. The first part of the letter is the greeting, and this is where you say hi basically to the one who is going to read this letter, aka the examiner. But when you write, you start with dear something something, right? This one will be given to you in the task. For example, in this task, you are going to write dear something. You can add the name of the person, you can ask the position of the person over here because the task allows you to do so. But in this task, for example, you are going to write dear sir, madam. This is compulsory because the task asks you to write dear sir and madam. And one pro tip for you here is that whenever you write Dear Sir, Madam, this is absolutely 100% a formal letter. So if you get Dear Sir and Madam in the task like this, you cannot change. You have to start your letter with Dear Sir, Madam. A lot of people forget about this comma and they lose points because this is a grammar mistake. And then there's self-introduction. Now, I want you to stop here a little bit to imagine yourself writing the letter because it is important for you to put yourself in the position, like you are really writing this letter and somebody is really going to read it. You need to ask yourself whether self-introduction is necessary in this case. Does it make sense if the person doesn't know your name? Or does your letter still sound convincing, sound good, sound logical if you don't introduce yourself? If yes, you can skip this part. If no, you need to put a little bit of self-introduction over here. For example, your name. Now let's take a look at this task. In this task, you are going to write a letter to apply for a job. By logic, it is always best for you to introduce yourself a little bit. But in this letter, you are writing a letter to your boss who, of course, knows you, right? So you don't have to really introduce yourself. And if you are writing a letter to your friend, why are you introducing yourself? And after this, there is a compulsory part for every single letter that you are going to write. The aim of the letter. This is what the greetings are about, right? This is where you say hi to the examiner, and this is where you tell the examiner what you are going to write. Like this. We are moving on to the next part of the letter, which is the body. This is where you are going to discuss everything in detail, and we are going to look back at the task over here. Every single task will have some bullet points, normally 3 different bullet points. Treat these bullet points as requirements, and you're going to fulfill all the requirements of this letter. So based on the number of bullet points, I will be having the exact same number of body paragraphs. Each body paragraph will be dedicated to one bullet point or one requirement. And every single paragraph should follow this exact structure. Start the paragraph with an opening sentence. For example, in this letter, I have to write a letter of application to apply for this particular job. And the first requirement for me is to tell the recruiter why I am a good candidate for this position. So I will start my body paragraph like this. And after that, of course, I need to prove my points because I already said that I am a good candidate for this position, right? I'm going to prove my point by providing the details of my qualifications, of my experience, and why I think that I am a good candidate. So to this part, I'm going to dedicate 2 to 3 long and complex sentences. This is, to me, the best length that I think a body paragraph should be in a letter. So it should look like this. After writing the paragraph for the first requirement, I will move on to the second requirement and later the third requirement. Every single paragraph would follow the exact same structure, the opening sentence and then the details to support the opening sentence. Of course, I should use linking words to link the ideas and also the paragraphs together. As I said, normally we have 3 requirements, meaning 3 body paragraphs. And after the third paragraph, it is time for you to write a sign-off. The sign-off is where you express your expectation from this letter. And then you say bye. So for this letter of application, this is how I'm going to end it. If you follow this exact structure with simple grammar, simple vocabulary, you will for sure get 6 to 6.5. Now, if you want to get more than 6 and 6.5, you need to look at the type of letter you're dealing with. With letter of complaint, the language is a little bit different from the language that you use in a letter of request or a letter of application. Join my Everything IELTS preparation plans for unlimited support and benefits. You will learn much more than this, but for now you can get free practice tests on practicenight.co. I'll see you there. For now, you have fun learning. Bye.